Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Just 2 rounds remain left in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour in what has been a long season for some, and for some a season of sweetness. We head, though, to the middle of France here, to the Circuit de Nevers, Magny-Cours here in Bourgogne-Franche-Comté. And that is going to be where our penultimate round comes into play. A small European trip to end off the season, and an important end to the season on top of that, with a championship already decided and a second one about to be wrapped up. It's been the Jacob Reed show as he searches for his 15th race win of the season. My name's Jake Sperry, Caitlin Penny along with me for the ride today on a circuit which folds in on itself over and over and over again. Caitlin, this is going to be a really interesting challenge, actually, in terms of this circuit, because despite that high-natured effort of top speed needed into the Adelaide hairpin, this is very much a downforce-dependent circuit as we head to the middle of France.
Yeah, absolutely. This track has a real balance to it, with long straights and then tight, twisty sections. Also some nice, fast, sweeping chicanes, which I very much enjoy. And you don't really get those so much on the newer circuits. You tend to get kind of put in artificial chicanes that slow the cars down. There you see the track from above, and any of you older Formula 1 fans will be familiar with this. This circuit was last used back in 2008 for Formula 1, although continues to be used for sports car racing and motorbike racing and all sorts of other motorsport action.
Yes, it certainly does, and there's, of course, many places where passes can be made today. Of course, the run out of Estoril in towards Adelaide is the prime place to see it done. The 180 there, turn 9, often you can find that as a place to attack. Chateau d'Eau, there's sometimes mistakes. And then, of course, you got DRS over to the Complexe du Lycée on this 17-turn circuit, and the very difficult final chicane out here at Magny-Cours to go and get correct. It's a wonderful track to go out there and race and challenge on, and one that we will definitely be keeping a very close eye on. Let's talk championship standings very quickly as we set things on. There are your iRacing standings, your SimSpeed standings, as Jacob Reed finds himself then miles ahead of Jordan Gronkowski, who is confirmed second, third confirmed for Eduardo Radice, and fourth all but confirmed for Walter Lux, who finds himself in that 4th position. Anyone from about 27th in the championship could still make a charge and find themselves inside the top 10, currently gate-capped by Emil Lundell, who, of course, has found 4 starts this year and 4 podiums to go along with that without a race victory. So keep an eye on what Emil Lundell is potentially capable of doing. The iRacing standings, Caitlin, all but wrapped up. Jacob Reed then with that 500-plus point margin over Eduardo Radice just needs to find a finish here today, and he's got that one under lock and key.
Yeah, and let's face it, Jacob Reed has pretty much had that one under his belt for the whole championship. 15 wins is quite something, so definitely expect him to go for another one today. I think if we are keeping track of records, then that is what Jacob Reed is going for. But obviously, don't count out the likes of Radice or Gronkowski. They are both also here, and I've been told, although we didn't broadcast it last week, that Florian Kammerer was very quick there as well. And of course, he is also here today, hoping to redeem himself.
Well, he'll be hoping that there is some good pace available, though I will note that he is not here today, so he will not be putting times in on the board and trying to go through 70 laps worth of racing action over this Magny-Cours circuit, which will be about 308 kilometres worth of driving. 2 tyre compounds will have to be used over the course of this race, and of course the DRS will be available to these drivers from the start of lap 3 here today around this Magny-Cours circuit. We're expecting a one-stop strategy on the board today, Caitlin, as we take a look at these temperatures, and it's pretty cold out there. 21 degrees track temperature right in the middle of the day.
I mean, it's nowhere near as cold as it is where I am right now. It is apparently 9 degrees Celsius and raining. But of course, we don't have to worry about precipitation. There is going to be a completely clear sky for the whole of this race. And to be honest, for this time of year, that's pretty nice for the middle of France. So I don't think that will be much of an issue. And actually, I think the tyres will probably enjoy these conditions.
They certainly will. All drivers have set their times, and it is Emil Lundell who has put the car on pole position with a 1:12.722. It's Jordan Gronkowski, who has not had a top 4 finish since Zandvoort, mind you, who will be alongside him on the front row of the grid. It is then your 2-time champion, Jacob Reed, who is there in third position, with Emil Bernstorff for company in position number 4, looking to jump inside the top 10 in the late stages of the championship with no Nick Burt. Connor Pooler will go from 5th alongside Walter Lux, who starts from position number 6. It is then on row 4, George van Rensburg, who finds himself almost a second back, with Leopold Steneros for company there in the number 4 car in 8th position, with the top 10 rounded out by Paul O'Regan, who is still hoping to try and score a few points to try and get himself up the order, and Ray Griffioen, nice to see him with a good qualifying time. He will go from P10. Row 6 will see Anthony Catt, who does like the alternative strategy. He may have to go to that today in 11th, with Andre Lunger in 12th position overall, with Sebastian Rekov in 13th in the number 22 car. It's a 23-car field here today, along with Ken Nielsen, who always seems to find himself in the thick of it. A lot of drivers in the 1:13.8 as far as qualifying is concerned. Jason Green, one of those, in 15th position, along with Michel Rudeau in P16, with Edward Apariari down the order, with the world's fastest baker, Thomas Hint, who will go from 18th position. Row 10 on the grid has Eric Bursma and Lyle Pienaar, and there's a shock on row 11, because you look all the way back there at the times. Michael Weischerek is not the shock, but the shock is Eduardo Radice, who will have to go from 22nd position if he wishes to go and make the almighty charge. The last driver who didn't set a time was Gerard Borel, and he will be looking to try and get himself flying forward as much as he can. It's a short run here to the opening corner, and look at that wall of yellow-walled medium tyres that everybody looks like they are going on to start this race. So it looks like we are seeing 0 differences from all of these drivers. They all know what it takes, and they all know what they've got to go and work with. A lot of blinking from Emil Lundell will be quite concerning for everyone around as the green flag drops and we get ourselves underway and racing. A good clean start then as Emil Bernstorff gets a good jump then on Jacob Reed. Side by side for the races, they dance into Estoril for the first time. Lifting out of it has to go Gronkowski, but watch out for the pace out of Estoril, along through Golf Corner and over towards the Adelaide hairpin once again. It looks like there's a little bit of a gap further back. Sebastian Rekov dropping down the order then off for the start, but as they hit the brakes for the first time, it is clearness for Emil Lundell side by side as they go through, as Connor Pooler just about holds off Walter Lux, and now you've got Jason Green in the mix.
Yeah, there were a couple of cars off the road and in the gravel on the exit of the first corner. I think Boersma was one of them, and Mikkel Weischerek has just dropped down to 22nd position as well. I'm not sure that all 23 cars started the race, but we'll get back to there in a second to update you on if everyone's still running. But yes, it is Lundell who leads, followed by Gronkowski and Bernstorff in 3rd position. Reed has actually lost a place off the start there, dropping down to 4th place.
Well, it's not often that you say Jacob Reed drops a place off the start, and he has done here as they head through to the Complex du Lycée out there, and there's a little bit of radio chatter out there at the moment with the likes of Ray Griffio and Michel Rudeau on home soil. The number 16 Frenchman having to lift out of it because he can't quite find the move that he wants, and there was a little bit of contact for Michel Rudeau almost as he went through. He had to really abandon Chateau d'Eau as he went through on the opening lap for fear of Griffio in running straight into him. But here comes the look then along this straight. No DRS until lap 3 as they hit that run in towards the right of the Adelaide hairpin. It's single file, and you could say it is 8 cars clear at the moment. Lunge down the inside. Ken Nielsen, the Canadian, through on Andre Lange.
Indeed, I can confirm that not everyone did start the race, so Gerard Borel, who didn't set a time in qualifying, also didn't line up on the grid, and that means the 22 cars you see on your timing tower are the 22 cars in the race. Not actually as much jumping and diving as you see in a normal Grand Prix start. Everyone holding their position roughly, some people losing 1 or 2 places. And here's a replay of the start, someone getting a very bad getaway, and then you see a couple of drivers running off on the outside and a big slide, but a good save. And he keeps it pointed in the right direction as someone else, possibly Vishnirak, rejoins in front of him.
Yeah, Vaishnarak then finding himself then off the road on the opening lap, and that's why he tumbled down the order. Emil Lundell, fastest lap check mark next to his name, a 1:15.891. That's 1 extra SimSpeed Championship point in the back pocket, should he be able to hold on to that between now and the end of this race. Gronkowski with the DRS does the Scotsman have, and as he hits the brakes heading into Adelaide, he just slightly cooks it in late, and Anthony Katz finding himself then with a bit of trouble because he's got the black flag associated next to his name. So Anthony Cat, already in these early stages of the race, I think has picked up a penalty, and he will have to go to the lane.
Yeah, that's a bit surprising to see it at this early stage. Normally when we see a black flag penalty like that, it's because they've made a mistake in the pits. They've sped in the pits or something along those lines.
Oh.
But I presume he just didn't serve a slowdown in time. What's happened? Oh, crash, and it's at Edward Apariari.
With Anthony Cat, believe it or not. So Cat's been involved here in a big moment out there on circuit. It has caused havoc in the lower part of the field as Cat, with the black flag penalty, will have to come in, serve that penalty. He's trying to stay out of the way as many drivers as he possibly can heading over towards the pits, but that is not what you want on the opening laps of this race, just because of the fact of how much work it takes around this circuit to gather it back. So he attacks a little bit too hard. He goes into the 180 here, taking the outside. He's already got the penalty, mind you, so this is a little bit naughty, and he tries to thread away through the inside when it never really looked like it was on.
No, but I don't quite know why Apariari was so slow out of the corner. But anyway, we're getting back to the action. Cat has pitted, so that will clear the black flag from his name. And I tell you what, it's very good that we can actually see the black flags on the screen now. We haven't had that at previous races in the championship, and we're going to see a replay now, and this is Lundell, is it? Or Bernstorff?
No, this is Bernstorff getting the change through for second position. So this is how the move is made. DRS straight down the inside, and Jordan Gronkowski not really fighting that, meaning it's Emil in first, followed by Emil in second position. And the work that is needed to be done now by these drivers, I think, is quite stark as they've let that gap extend to 2 seconds here at the front of the field. And now Jacob Reed wanting to get one up on the driver, second overall in the championship. Watch out there for Anthony Cat, who will rejoin the circuit just behind those drivers that would have been slightly distracting through Estoril corner as they now charge their way over to the Adelaide hairpin once again. But this is where the DRS becomes really important in terms of where you can find a pass and where you can trade here on lap 5 of 70. Not close enough to go and make that move, but if Jacob Reed wants a way through, he's going to have to try and find a way to break around these drivers in front. Some very talented drivers in front of him.
Bernstorff kicked up a little bit of gravel coming out of the penultimate corner on that last lap, or rather the corner before the final chicane, so I guess it's 2 corners from the end, the penny penultimate, but manages to keep it on the road and keep it in second position. This is, however, letting Lundell get away slightly. He's nearly built out the gap to 2.5 seconds meaning he won't have to worry about the effect of the DRS for any time soon. And that's very important in these early stages of the race, because that will give him a little bit more flexibility with how he wants to drive his own race as we near the, well, we're a long way from the first pit window, but when we get there, he'll be thankful for the gap.
Well, we've already gone through the 1/14th stage of the race, so those opening 5 laps all complete as we start lap 6. You can take an aerial look at the chase then, running around Estoril corner and once more needing that position to be sorted. Cat, by the way, has gone on with his penalty to a set of soft compound tyres, which will basically be a commitment to a 2-stop race. Back to the inside, Gronkowski comfortably dispatching off the move, and they're going to have to work together here a little bit, I think. Gronkowski and Emil Bernstorff, they want to pull Emil Lundell's gap back down in over the course of this race. This is going to be a lot of work that has to be done transferring, and they are losing out predominantly here in this middle sector. Big wide line by Jordan Gronkowski through the 180, and that is going to cost him a little bit of time as he goes through, trying to carry maybe a little bit too much speed out there on circuits. They dance through the Imola chicane.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they are really working together, at least not well. There have been quite a few micro mistakes from these drivers, which have held up all of them. I mentioned a few laps ago Bernstorff kicking up the gravel slightly. That last time around, Jacob Reed, who's on the back of this train, had a little twitch coming out of the last corner. You can see they're not quite as precise as they maybe would like to be at this stage. And this is that Andre Lange running wide? Someone's gone straight on and rejoined side by side with Kent Nielsen, and then manages to retake. Is that Thomas Hinz actually? Yes, looks like it.
Yeah, so Lange then throwing the car into the corner, very nearly clattering with Jason Green there, which would have been very disastrous, and ultimately he keeps the same position, but he'll get another chance at it here on this lap, pulling out then through Estoril corner, and once more looking for that drive, and that big tight hairpin, one of the tightest hairpins that we have here in the world of iRacing, trying to get it slowed down, just 70 kilometers an hour they transit through that section, so they're really looking to try and hold as much pace as they possibly can to go and hit the middle sector of the lap. I think this is a wonderful circuit in terms of technical prowess and challenge, and it does require different lines being taken. You can see it there, Lange trying to really get the drive off the exit. Hinz there in the middle of the corner was taking the more conventional line.
Yeah, and I always like a good standout livery who shows us who we're looking at. This is Anthony Kapp, who's back in the pits again. So has anything else happened to the driver who was running a lap down? There's a big slide. Whoa, huge into the barriers. A massive accident. I tell you what, if you've ever seen John Lacey's crash at that corner, that was pretty much a replay of what we saw back then. I know that's a little bit of an obscure reference, but very similar, and unfortunately Anthony Kapp is out of the race already.
It's a hefty shunt. Jason Green, I think, just tagged the wall coming out of the final corner, and he's dropped a couple places as Gronkowski again looking behind. Bernstorff closes right up and then holds himself in play. Jason Green will take a look at this over the curves, and he just catches the curb on the outside, throws it over to the inside, and there the left-hand side tyres get thrown into the wall. He doesn't have damage, or much damage, so he can continue on, but he's got to be a little bit careful about that as the group now coalesces then behind Thomas Hinz and co, with Lange in the attack, and then Griffey Owen and Green and the likes there are all there. Michel Rudeau all looking for a way through. Lange taking the long line at 180, now up towards Imola and Chateau d'Eau.
Yeah, Green got lucky there not to get more damage than he did. I think he will have some, but you can see in the background that he's still in the race. This is Thomas Hinz once again going for a move on Andre Lange, forcing him to take the Lange line around the corner. Sorry, that was terrible, but does go through on the inside and makes up that position.
Yeah, comfortable pass there and getting it all sorted right now. 3 seconds, your leading margin at the front. There is still great racing going on for about 6th, 7th and 8th as Jason Green will look around and see that Eduardo Radice has made his way through, and in fact he'll feel like maybe there's a little bit too much has gone wrong as there's a spin out on the front stretch, and there is Jacob Reed looking to get the pass. He'll have to fight all the way to the Nürburgring corners now to try and get this pass sorted, and wisely he's going to fall back into line. They are all tripping up over each other. They've lost a second on this lap. Front wing change for Jason Green, 10.9 seconds. He's out and away. Rekov, I believe it was, potentially, I believe there was Weisschreck who had himself a spin, but ultimately, right now with this group, it is still going to be Gronkowski who holds, with behind him Emil Bernstorff and Jacob Reed, not feeling like they have to do too much. So final corner, we'll catch a look at this spin here, Caitlin, and again, it's exactly the same. You can't be too aggressive through the final corner up over that curve.
Nearly saved it. If the barrier had been a bit further back, he could have just released the brakes and carried on, but in the end had to bring it to a stop, so unfortunately not the save he was looking for. Meanwhile, I've noticed a couple of familiar faces in the YouTube chat. Hello to Florian Kammer. He says the reason he's not racing today is because his pedals broke and his new pedals sadly don't arrive until tomorrow. So that is unfortunate to hear. Good luck getting your new pedal set up, and I hope I see you back soon, as we're about to see a move potentially for Emil Bernstorff on the outside of Gronkowski, but I think that was a little bit more speculative. But Reed's getting involved now too. Oh, he's going to get it.
He's going to get it because there was a massive wiggle by Emil Bernstorff leaving the Adelaide section. He was very much trying to put the power down. I don't know if there was much contact or not. It just looked like he spun up the rear wheels there as he went through, was looking for traction and couldn't find any. And Jacob Reed back onto the podium.
Yeah, that's a case of one step forward, two steps back. There we see it. So Bernstorff is going for a move at this point, but he's a little distracted by what Gronkowski's doing, and then twitches as he tries to put the power down on the exit of the corner. Reed has no such problem and just gets the better drive, which puts him back up into those podium places.
Yeah, no complaints there from him in terms of what he was looking for there, Jacob Reed. So he can very comfortably now hold that third position and look to chase down once again on Jordan Gronkowski for that second place at now what is 4.7 seconds. The margin then at the front of the field. They will really have to work to try and gather that all back in at the moment. There is your race leader, Emil Lundell. Quiet start for him for the race, but exactly what he was hoping for. A gap behind Jacob Reed. Wastes no time trying to find that pass. Drive off the exit, though, is Gronks. And at the moment, it's Scotland who takes it over England. And that is a very hefty defence heading through the Nürburgring and over towards the 180. Big wide line by Jacob Reed trying to get exit traction.
These two have fought for race wins before, but not for a while. This is a bit of a comeback drive here for Jordan Gronkowski, but keep watching Jacob Reed as he's all over the back of the bright red Scottish driver's car. The driver who we know is good both in the simulator and in real life. He's driven in Formula Ford style cars for a little while. And Reed's got a good run here, and he's got the DRS open. He's going faster than Gronkowski down the straight. He's got the inside line. He touches him, drives him off the road, and through comes Bernstorff to third.
Well, just like that, Jacob Reed gets ruthless. Jordan Gronkowski will feel that he's a little bit hard pressed and driven off the circuit there. Very aggressive by Jacob Reed, and Emil Bernstorff picks up a freebie and doesn't have to worry about his own overtake through there. So that was nicely constructed, easily done. But here comes Emil Bernstorff moving over to the left-hand side. He'll get the move sorted, and that is the tangle that they've got themselves into. This is a massive, massive moment, and effectively, it's very much a case of they're looking at everyone else except your race leader.
Yeah, goodness me, Emil Lundell has a 6-second gap at the minute. We've pretty much been ignoring him ever since this has happened. I've also seen him move further down the order. Looks like Sebastian Recco is fighting with Andre Langer. Now, who are we looking at? This is Lundell. Sorry, I'd forgotten what his car had looked like. We haven't seen it for so long. And then further behind, Bernstorff, Reed and Gronkowski are still going at it. Gronkowski tried to get back at Reed up into the hairpin this time around, but wasn't quite close enough. And here's the DRS zone again.
Yep, so then in towards that complex du Lycée, which will end out the lap as they dance through the right and the left and cross the line, doing 1:16s out there, a 16 flat from Emil Bernstorff on that last lap compared to a 16.2 of Emil Lundell, but collectively 16.6 and 16.5 from the other two. Gives you a little look at the gap. Behind that, though, Connor Pula has been reeled in by Leopold Steneros, the second of the Swedes here. in this race, hoping to find his move through for position. Left-hand side looking as there is Jacob Reed now back into second position, and behind that, Steneros gets the pass he wants. He's through, then making the pass that he wants on Connor Pooler, and behind that you got Voltalux and George van Rensburg, who are there for position in 7th and 8th. A wonderful top 8 right now, split by just 12.
Yeah, we didn't see Reed getting past Bernstorff, but it happened at this part of the road, so I assume it happened as a standard DRS overtake. That's Sebastian Rackau still fighting with Andre Lange, and well, Thomas Hinz has got pretty well clear of them now actually, but they were fighting with Hinz just now, and some more swapping around further down. This is a replay. You can see Bernstorff taking a very different line to Reed, wide in, tight out, but Reed was able to get the run down the straight, has the DRS open. That's a pretty straightforward one through the little right-hander in the straight they call golf.
Yeah, that is what you call easy in terms of a pass, and not really much to complain about there at this moment. Lundell currently in control of the race on a 1:16.2, a 15.7 though last time by Jacob Reed. Would be a slight cause for concern. Now he's got clean air for the first time and the ability to go out there and really charge as Gronk throws one down the inside against Emil Bernstorff then, and Bernstorff again struggles on the outside line finding traction, and Gronk gets his pass.
Indeed, so Gronkowski back through into third position, sets off after Jacob Reed, who rather ran him out of road a few laps ago. Can he catch him before the champion starts to get away? And back down we see the battle between Lange, Rackau et al. And you can see there, battle for 12th, Rackau, Lange, Rudeau, Radice and Griffioen. Radice now into the top 15. This is the first time we've seen him in this race. And this battle has been going on since the very start and will probably keep going until at least the pit window.
Well, the trouble here that you are going to be finding out then with someone like Eduardo Radice is he'll now sweep around the outside of Imola to get the pass on Michel Rudeau, who will look and see Ray Griffioen there alongside, and the two almost tangled together on lap 1. Rudeau gives a little bit back through that section. It goes to show you that he's half a minute off the race lead at the moment here, is Eduardo Radice, but this is what happens at a circuit like this. This is not a track I'd like to qualify down at the back of the field for.
No, certainly not. You can overtake it. There are 2 DRS zones and they happen on some quite long straights followed by some quite tight turns. But at the same time, you have to really hang on. It's a white knuckle ride as you go around the right-hander at Estoril. Here we see Griffioen going for a move on Rudeau with the DRS open on the left-hand side. And that's not necessarily the place you want to be here unless you can do a bit of a switchback maneuver on the exit. A little bit of a lockup, but Rudeau should keep that for now. Also a little bit more chatter in the YouTube chat. Anthony Cat says that couldn't have gone much worse. Yes, indeed. Well, I'm glad you're okay, because if this was a real-life accident, as Adam Webb says, that would have set off your G meters for sure. And Adam Webb has also sent us an excuse for why he's not racing. He says he's on holiday in Scotland. Okay, I think we'll forgive you for that.
I'm not. You should be out here racing with any way, shape or form you can. But at least for the moment then, we focus second, third and fourth as Jacob Reed, Jordan Gronkowski and Emil Bernstorff find themselves in the second, third and fourth positions, and now look to chase once again here on lap 16. Out of 70, Emil Lundell, your race leader by 6 seconds at the moment, and through the corner, not much that they could do about it. In comes, though, Michel Rudeau for what I would suggest is the first deliberate pit stop that we're going to be seeing, and an indicated 2-stop.
Yep, so Rudeau dropping down to the back of the field. We mentioned earlier that one-stops are probably the way that the leaders are going to go, but you never really know with a Grand Prix like this. The only thing that's certain is that you have to use 2 different compounds of tyre, so you have to make at least 1 pit stop. But aside from that, it's completely up to you and up in the air, so we just have to wait and see what the drivers end up doing.
Well, it looked to me like he had a front wing change or the like, because it was a 10-second stop in the lane. So Michel Rudeau really finding out the hard way. What he's got to do is he comes out behind Jason Green by about 5 seconds. out on track. So he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to try and pull himself forward and gain a little bit more than what he's currently got in this race, because this is going to be a long haul from here to get to the end. But I think he's got it slightly easier than what he would do if he was up against Jason, or in Jason Green's shoes. And as we take a look in towards Adelaide once again, Jordan Gronkowski again gets close to Jacob Reed, and you really get the sense here that you could throw the car in from what I would say is quite a long way back. You don't need to be right underneath going through the Grand Curb and Estoril to make that move, and this is what's going to make life difficult for these drivers, because it's going to feel very pack mentality-ish, and you can see it in the way that the group has now looked to coalesce. Leopold Steneros' pace has been fantastic. He joins the back of Emil Bernstorff.
Yeah, meanwhile, Kent Nielsen just got past Paulo Reagan for 9th position. Those two tend to be about equal on pace. They tend to share the track with each other, and Nielsen has managed to get through on that last lap. Nielsen's a driver who has certainly gained positions since the start of the race, and is going pretty well out there. We didn't see exactly how it happened, but yeah, the timing screen changed about, and now Nielsen is up into 9th position.
Yeah, he is now, and that pass on Paulo Reagan would have been a very important one to make as we go on board with Leopold Steneros, hoping that position is going to change for him pretty soon, and he could move up then in towards 4th place. And Steneros has been a driver that had been up in the top 10 of the championship for a fair while here in this season. He currently finds himself 19th. He's got himself 1 podium over the course of racing this season. That was back at the Hungaroring, and a 5th place finish at round 2 at VIR. So definitely has the talent, has the ability to go out there and find results on occasion. But there's a change of position then as Jordan Gronkowski now moves back into 2nd once again, this time getting it done at, guess where, the prime place to get it done, Adelaide Hairpin.
Yeah, and the same thing happened with Van Rensburg and Lux. So Van Rensburg is now up into 7th position, but Gronkowski would have felt that that was a little bit of just revenge there after what Jacob Reed did to him earlier on in the race. And hopefully there's no red mist descending or whatever, because we want to see this race staying clean. As meanwhile, Leopold Steneros has actually been catching up at quite a rate of knots the last few laps. Earlier on, it was very much a race for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, but now I think you can bundle 5th in with that. And look at Reed, he's going back for 2nd.
300 kilometers an hour. He's got 20 clicks in a straight line difference over Jordan Gronkowski. Everyone running the bigger rear wings as Andre Langer comes into the pits then and looks to make his first scheduled stop. He'll get tyres and he will get himself off and away again, because there is no refueling in this series. 4.2 seconds stationary, and he will come out behind Eric Bursma, and he will also come out behind Michael Weisserack. So he will find himself in that small little gap that he can go and work with on the soft compounder tyres then. The red walled stripes that you will see around the wheels are yellow for pretty much everyone else at this moment in time, but it is a Fab 4 that is trying to work this one out here for 2 spots on the podium.
Adam Webb says, nice battles for P2, but Emil Lundell must be bored out in front. I'm not sure he'll have many complaints about that, as we see the number 11 driver heading round Estoril. He's doing a very good job out there. But yeah, it's been a rather clean track for him over the last, well, the whole race actually. Here's Leopold Steneros, who did have a clean track, but now has caught up to the back of Emil Bernstorff. He'll get the DRS as they go down the straight. What about Reed and Gronkowski up in front? Gronkowski's getting closer, but not close enough this time around. And they go into the hairpin line astern.
Decisively lifted off there, did Jordan Gronkowski. He had the opportunity to throw it to the inside, but he felt he was slightly late, so he decided against it. Bernstorff happy to shadow, and because he's just stuck within about that 1 second window where he can get the drag reduction system, that extra 80 brake horsepower roughly that is created by opening the rear wing flap as an overtaking aid, it is very difficult for Leopold Steneros to get anywhere close to making a move, because that advantage that he would gain by being behind and having that wing open compared to what Emil Bernstorff has when he doesn't have it open is just simply eradicated.
So 2/7 of the race done now. You have to wonder when the pit window will be open. Of course, they can pit at any time, but of course we're expecting it to be a little bit closer to the halfway point, probably not exactly at the halfway point, but yeah, I guess we'll find out about that in due time. Stenhouse following Bernstorff through Estoril and once again into the DRS zone. It's quite a short lap here, so you get quite a few opportunities off the back of each other, and he'll get almost a triple DRS effect heading down the straight now, with the two cars ahead of him also having their rear wings gaping wide open. One thing I don't think we've mentioned today is that you often see a difference in rear wing design for the different cars, rear wing bevel, as some drivers go for lower downforce settings, some drivers go for higher downforce settings. They all look relatively stationary today, I think.
Well, Gronk's definitely on the high downforce package. Take a look there at the very flat rear wing as Eric Bursma is down in the pits at the moment there. You can see Gronk's got that very much, I would say, a grinning Cheshire Cat style beveled wing there. You can see there on the bottom as he goes through. Yeah. You look at someone like Jacob Reed, for example, it is pancake flat as he goes through, which means he's running slightly less downforce out there, and I would say a medium downforce package that he's got going on. Emil Bernstorff on a higher downforce package, Leopold Stenhouse, medium downforce package.
Well, that destroys my point entirely then. I have to admit, I thought I'd be able to tell that from looking at them from the outside, but yeah, it doesn't seem that I could. But you're absolutely right, and good camera work there from our cameraman Jay, because I would not have noticed that otherwise. Now look at second position. Oh, that was a proper attempt there from Jordan Gronkowski, but he knew that if he dived to the inside, that would have been trouble.
Yeah, he was not quite close enough to making that move, and behind that there is a change as George van Rensburg sidles his way on by, does the South African, getting it done on Connor Pooler for position. That is 6th and 7th right now currently, and George van Rensburg, another one of these drivers who's trying to knock on the door of a top 10 championship result. By the time everything is all said and done, he is 12th currently in the championship with a best finish of 4th at Aragon. So he has been someone who has been picking up points, and predominantly through the likes of 7th place finishes this season, Caitlin. He's had 4 of them.
Yeah, he's never been stellar, but I do think that he is one of the most improved drivers of the season, and that's Jacob Reed in the pits. Now that's a little bit earlier than I expected, and it's earlier than his main rivals. Could this indicate a 2-stop strategy, or is he just going to run it long because he knows he has the tyre life?
Now, once upon a time, there was a certain Michael Schumacher in the fuel-assisted era who made a 4-stop strategy work, doing qualifying laps to win a race like this. Jacob Reed out and away again, and he will get himself off and going on the set of the soft compound tyres. This will be partly to try and break into the gap he's got in front, and crucially he realised that he's got a little bit of clean air there. He had about 2 seconds worth of margin with Ken Nielsen, who had been dropping back off the pace, so he's now got the room to make that stop and try and get his strategy all nicely situated. Those drivers though who are still on the medium tyres will be looking at Jacob Reed's lap times with bated breath. It will take 2 laps to realise what sort of pace he's got, and if he's got anything in the back pocket, I think it'll be quite telling when drivers decide they want to launch down into the pits and make their pit stops.
And of course the advantage of going for a strategy where you do put in qualifying laps, like you said, is that you also get a point for fastest lap if you are to take that. So Jacob Reed pushing on, presumably will take the fastest lap away from Emil Lundell in not too long. I'd be surprised if he didn't, to be honest, because Jacob Reed on soft tyres is something to behold. But yeah, I think I'm leaning towards 2 stops now rather than the 1 stops that we expected to happen earlier, especially since we've seen that overtaking is surprisingly doable. There have been a lot of overtakes down into that corner in particular, so I don't think you would lose out as much by making an extra pit stop than you otherwise would.
Gap now up to 8.3 at the front for car number 11, Emil Lundell, who finds himself then out in front and leading this race. It's not the first time this season that he has led a race, but he has been unable to convert to a race victory this season. He has had 3 third place finishes and a 2nd place finish at the Circuit of the Americas. He's just been unable to find that extra little morsel that gets him up to a victory out there as we focus on this group of second, third and fourth. Currently, Gronkowski, Bernstorff and Steneros, who finds himself there in that fourth position. Keeping an eye on the times, Gronk a 1:16.4 on that last lap as Jacob Reed exits the Lycée section of the circuit, a 15.3 he puts down on the board, which gives him the purple check mark and says that he is currently 1.1 seconds quicker than those who are on the medium compound tyres used.
And no surprise there whatsoever. The advantage he's getting now is that he will very likely jump these three drivers in the pit window. These three drivers still battling with each other, losing all that time, and they're on the older, harder tyres. So Reed will almost definitely come out ahead of them when they make their pit stop. But of course, the difference is that if these drivers are still planning to do that one stop, then of course Reed will have to pit another time. So he will find himself ahead, but will that matter for much?
Well, he's either going to have to go a very long time on the soft tyres, and that would be 53 laps worth of running that he'll do, as in comes the race leader, Emil Lundell, who can only go 25 full laps worth as Gronkowski goes on through, and staying out then, going in, is Emil Bernstorff. You've also got Edward Apari-Ari. He's in the pits because he's had an incident as he was trying to get by Ray Griffey-Owen for position. So some dramas out there on circuit. Edward Apari-Ari is out.
Yeah, that's a shame. We saw him having a minor incident earlier on. This one possibly a little more major, and we're looking at a replay of it now. Goes to the right-hand side. Whoa! And that looked like a bit of a netcode incident there. I'm afraid I don't think that looked like contact in the making, but that's done the damage. As for the race, I think it is a two-stop race now for probably everyone.
Well, I would say it was a lot of netcode there. It's definitely a case of about a third of a car's width difference there as he tried to slip his way through. But the way that netcode works is that in some way that the contact system worked, there would have been contact as they went on by, and that's why the contact was registered there by where you are, and that is the pitfalls of having racing like this from time to time. Gronkowski, though, with a lap then out then in front, and drivers indicating they want to go to a two-stop strategy then here today. But these two here, Gronkowski and Steneros, trying to maybe extend it out because they'll be looking at about lap 40 here would be ideal in terms of making their stop going on to the set of the Redwall soft compound tyres if they can manage it. The difference... Oh! Off! That's Jacob Reed into the barriers. He backs it in, and somehow, some way, you never see that from him, and he finds a mistake of the highest magnitude as Steneros leads.
Yeah, so Steneros is just past Gronkowski, but what drama we saw there for Jacob Reed. I know
He's
that
got
the
a
damage...
meatball.
Yeah, I know the damage just corrected itself, but he'll definitely still get some damage from that. He just got too much of the curb. He bit the car over the curb, and it spat him off into the barrier. That was a very nasty impact, which will definitely send him back to the pit lane.
It will do, and it will have to be a retirement here as we take a look at the race lead changing move of Leopold Steneros, moving himself down through on the inside. Jordan Gronkowski, nothing he can do. But Jacob Reed will officially be out of this race, and a huge moment. He was really pushing to try and get that gap down to Emil Lundell, that gap of about 8 seconds, which he got down to 3 seconds, by the way, with his pit stop. But there's not much that he can do about it, as through went Ken Nielsen for position. Jacob Reed will have to pull the car into the pits and assess how long he has to sit there for the damage, but I'd indicate that his race is pretty much over.
Yeah, I just saw another change somewhere, but we're looking at Jacob Reed now coming into the pits. Is there, I mean, you say he's out of the race, but is there any chance he could repair it?
Well, it depends on how bad the damage is. Normally, if it's suspension related, there's not much he can do. Black and orange mechanical flags can be repaired, but we don't know how much it is, as he's in the pits with the fastest lap and pretty much in a world of hurt. So Steneros leads, it's Gronkowski in second, it's Emil Lundell third, Eduardo Rodis will now pick up a position. He'll go to unlucky 13th for some right now as he'll look to chase, but we did just have Emil Lundell through on George van Rensburg on this lap. So George, not much he could do. That was an overtake into, believe it or not, turn 1, which we don't see very often.
Yeah, that would be the... Oh, well, I saw there was a lockup.
Oh, now it's a lockup.
Yeah, I think he's okay. That would have been from Lundell himself. But yeah, he's got away with it. Yeah, so the reason he's been able to get through into turn 1 is simply because he's significantly faster now on those soft new tyres. And here he goes down the straight once again. Into the pits comes Van Rensburg, about time, and Lundell reclaims his fastest lap as we watch Jacob Reed. This is Lundell. This is Lundell's move on Van Rensburg.
Yeah, you don't often see it into turn 1. He got such a great drive out of the Lycée complex that he could just slide through the Grand Curve and think nothing better of it than I will make that pass, and I will smile making that pass. Here is Gordon Gronkowski in second position. Look at Leopold Steneros. He has left him in the dust there. 0.7 of a second over that last lap. Jordan Gronkowski, I don't know he realises what's quite hit him right now. Leopold's got some fantastic pace.
Absolutely. Jacob Reed has come into the YouTube chat and said that's why I was using high downforce. Well, unfortunately, high downforce is, it helps. It helps you to keep control, but when you hit the curb like that, the car does not enjoy it. So Leopold Steneros now leads the race from Jordan Gronkowski. Both of these drivers still yet to make their pit stops. Emil Lundell should re-inherit the race lead when that happens, and almost definitely will. Steneros already 2 seconds ahead of Gronkowski now. He's really flying in this race, and I would say don't count him out yet, because yeah, he wasn't involved earlier, but he's got that clean air now, and he's clearly got the pace later on in the stint than other drivers had.
The issue through the final chicane there in the Lycée complex is you don't rely as much on the downforce there. You rely on the mechanical grip and being heavy up over the high-sided anti-cut curbs that you've got there through that final chicane. It is very easy just to catch it a little bit heavy like Jacob Reed did. Have that compression damping as the rear tyres just step up off of the circuit. You can't plant the power down, and then all of a sudden the car turns around as Walter Lux makes the pass on Paul O'Regan then for position, and he gets that move. We'll take another little look at it here, and this will be the understanding of how quickly it can go wrong. So he goes over the first one, attacks over the second, he catches way too much of the curb, car snaps itself around, and at that point you're a passenger, because there is not much you can do to save yourself on what is a very congested circuit by track space if you go off.
That's such an easy mistake to make. Anyone who's turned any kind of laps at all around Magny-Cours would have made that impact and or made that mistake and had that impact. But unfortunately, it does appear that Jacob Reed is out of the race for good now. So 19 cars remaining in this one. I think all of them still on the lead lap, at least for now. We should get some traffic not too far from now, as we're nearing the halfway point, and there actually, that's Eric Bursma running at the back, and you can see Leopold Steneros coming up to catch him. But it is Steneros leading from Gronkowski, Lundell, Pula and Bernsdorf at this point in the race, with Lundell presumably in the net lead.
Well, here's the interesting point to consider here. It's 8 seconds the gap between Steneros and Lundell at the moment, and I'd say it's about 9 laps until Steneros needs to make his stop. We will indicate that if Lundell needs to make an extra stop then in this race, it's going to be a very interesting game of swings and roundabouts here with what Steneros can do on a set of soft tyres, what Jordan Gronkowski can do in this one, because I don't count Leopold Steneros out from winning this race outright as it stands. Lunger currently in 13th position, will be looking behind him. That's Ray Griffioen, who's looking at 4 places. He's down 4 currently. Thomas Hinds, one of your biggest movers, up 8. And Eduardo Radice, your biggest one, around up 10. Another fastest lap for Emil Lundell's Lyle Pina in the middle of this one here right now, dealing with Jason Green, who he's just lost the place to. And behind that, Michel Rudeau, who's having no love here on home soil.
And runs wide over the chicane as well. I also just saw that Sebastian Recco got into the top 10 ahead of Thomas Hinds. And as you say, Emil Lundell set another fastest lap of the race. At this point, he'll be on Leopold Steneros and Jordan Gronkowski in just about 5 laps' time. Bernsdorf now passing Pula on the road. That's an important one. Pula was holding him up. And he is back through into 4th position, but a long, long way now behind his fellow Emil.
Well, he's getting close here, trying to find that, and it looks like there's been an issue for Jordan Gronkowski. He's dropped about 2 to 3 seconds. Is this into Adelaide, where he's been a little bit hot on the brakes from time to time? He throws the car in. He's just overcooked it there, and he's had to really scramble to get the car back, and outbraking yourself there definitely makes life a lot harder, and that will now bring Emil Lundell close. Rekov getting himself back through, and the pass that he desperately wanted then on Thomas Hinz. He holds off the challenge there on that occasion, which brings himself nicely into play. But keep an eye out on second and third, because this is going to be, I think, quite a telling battle out there on circuit between Lundell and Gronkowski. How much can Emil use the tyres to make the move? As here comes the look from Thomas Hinz at Chateau d'Eau. He can't quite get it at the water tower.
Kent Nielsen into the pits now as well from P6, and he will drop just outside of the top 10, but I think in the net order he's probably about 9th or 10th. I guess we will have to wait and see towards the end of the race. But when I said it was a two-stop strategy for everyone, I think I was speaking a bit early. Leopold Steneris clearly still has the pace to go further. Jordan Gronkowski has been dropping back a bit and making more mistakes. He might be regretting his decision at this point. And look, Lundell's already on the back of Gronkowski. But yes, Steneros in particular will surely go for a one-stop strategy at this point. We're nearly at the halfway point already. And there is Thomas Hinz, who has made the move back on Sebastian Rekau and got straight back through into 9th place.
Yeah, no problems there, and with Rekov into that 10th place now, watch out here for what Jordan Gronkowski might have to do to defend, because this is where Emil Lundell will have that ability to attack through the grand curve. Turn 2, Estoril of turn 3, which goes on for forever and a day, and you're trying to pick the power up at 240 kilometers an hour up into a straight line at top speed. Emil Lundell, oh, he doesn't even wait to say goodbye. He just flew by him, and that is the most demoralizing sight for a racing driver.
Yeah, because Lundell's made up an entire pit stop on him there. Part of that is due to strategy, but he has still had to do it on the road, and that always feels demoralizing. So it's now Steneris in the lead by 5 seconds. Lundell has caught Gronkowski quicker than I suggested because of that mistake that Gronkowski made, and Jordan is clearly struggling out there. Ray Griffioen now in the pits as well. But yes, back to the order. Bernstorff 4th, Lux in 5th. Looks like there's been a couple of changes further back, but that's still to be expected with drivers out there on mediums yet to pit.
Yeah, so that's going to be important. That's Radice! Oh, he throws it down the inside. A bit of contact with Thomas Hinz, and Hinz is the loser out of that. He drops 2 places for his troubles. Eduardo Radice, an absolute rocket ship from a mile back to make that move. 2 for 1.
Oh, that was a little bit bold. I'm not sure he intended to go for 2 moves in that one, but he found Hinz midway through the corner, and I think they were lucky to get away without it being worse. Hinz was actually leaving the door slightly open. This is a good camera angle look. We don't see this very often. And there you see it. And you see him locking up the rears there, going into the corner, desperately thinking, oh, I'm going to hit him. And then he does. And back through comes Sebastian Rekau as well. And that was a bit of a Christmas present, slightly early, but there you go. More of a Thanksgiving present, actually. And he will be very thankful for that. Into the pits now comes Eduardo Radice. Hopefully no damage after that collision.
Well, that might be something of a cause of concern. He, of course, is on the set of soft tyres and back in again and looking to really make that charge here on lap 35. A 9.3 second stop would indicate that, yes, he did have to do something with the front wing. There is Leopold Steneros, who leads your race outright by 4 seconds at the moment, continuing on his race right now, taking the longer run forward with there Emil Lundell trying to chase him down. Jordan Gronkowski there in 3rd position, currently on the road, and he'll be looking at this to try and secure a podium over Emil Bernstorff if he can. He's got about 10 seconds to him at the moment, and he'll have a smile knowing that he's still got, I would say, a sizable gap in that regard. DRS for Gronk, as he will chase along this straight, with the battle in front of him being Ray Griffioen versus Eric Bursma. This for 16th and 17th, and deep in again goes Gronk.
Yeah, a little bit of a mistake there, but gets back on the road, still struggling. And here's Kent Nielsen on the back of Sebastian Rekau. Should get through pretty quickly. Rekau Seems is headed for the pit lane, so no real surprise there either. And there's Thomas Hinz still carrying on in that purple car. Thomas Hinz, not a regular here in this championship. He's made about 4 or 5 starts so far this season, but that's to be expected, being literally on the other side of the world. And there's Paul passing O'Regan now for 7th.
Yeah, Paul O'Regan will take those 4 championship points at the moment if he can keep the car in 8th place, having yet to make his pit stop. Still there on the medium tyres just before there, and in comes your race leader. Leopold Steneros has dived in with 34 laps to go, so he could go only 36 laps on his stint, and he missed his box. Leopold Steneros missed his box.
That's a shame. He was doing a great job. Adam Webb in the YouTube chat as well, cheering Leopold on, but that was a mistake that could cost him, and out he goes on those soft tyres. I do think he can run to the end of the race on those tyres. I know it's a big ask, but I think he could have gone further on the mediums if he'd wanted to, so the fact that he pitted shows that he has confidence in the softs. Anyway, he continues on his way. He's behind Bernstorff by about 6 seconds. Gronkowski is through to 2nd now, still yet to stop, and O'Regan and Hinz are the other 2 drivers still out there on the original mediums.
Well, that would have costed Leopold Steneros maybe 2 seconds if he wasn't careful about it, and he would have desperately needed those as he's got his fresh set of boots on. Lundell now your leader, and Jordan Gronkowski will surely now be looking at when's the right time to make my pit stop, because you look at where Steneros has come out by comparison. He's come out in 4th, and he'll be around Volta Lux here would be Jordan Gronkowski, with the gap that he finds himself behind a little bit further back of that, but he continues on. I think he is really trying to get that 40-30 split right down into a level, and this is a circuit which is quite high, you'd say, on its degradation, especially with corners like Estoril, for example, as here goes Eduardo Radice flying down the inside, getting the move sorted then on Sebastian Rekov, and jumping up into that 14th place once again.
Yep, so there is Eduardo Radice still carrying on despite this clearly not being his day. And talking if not his day, Jordan Gronkowski continues to lose time to the leader Emil Lundell. He'll be under pressure from Bernstorff in a few laps if it continues this way. That's Eric Bersma and Lyle Pina. They're both a lap down, so not in this fight for 2nd position. But in the background you can see Bernstorff catching up and getting involved in due time.
Yeah, so this one right down at the back of the field here. Pienaar closing up to Eric Bersma, who is having to deal with the drivers who are slightly quicker here, trying to find the way through. He's been very vocal on the radio every single time. He's had to go and rely on that, so he's been very much behaving in that regard. Gronk crossing the line, a 1:16.5 he was able to do on that last lap compared to a 15.3 of Emil Lundell. So that's the difference, 1.2 seconds a lap, and those 1:15s, I think, are rather telling. Only a 15.8 though on the first out lap then, or first real flying lap by Leopold Steneros. So on the tyres, he's got a big advantage on them. He is half a second slower than Emil Lundell at the moment.
Yeah, Lundell continuing to lead, continuing to hold that fastest lap of the race. He's not setting fastest laps right now. The tyres are slightly further past that point, but he continues to extend his gap. We're on board with George van Rensburg catching up to the back of Walter Lux, going into the hairpin. I don't know if I finished my point earlier about van Rensburg, how even though he hasn't been stellar in this championship, I do think he's one of the most improved. Started the season as a real backmarker and has worked his way up into a regular contender for top 10 points. I wouldn't be surprised if he is in the top 10 in the last 2 races of the championship, but he's on the back of Walter Lux now and getting involved for 5th place.
And Walter Lux pretty much confirming himself with the non-start today of Florian Kamar due to his pedal issue. It will mean that he will confirm 4th place in the championship, and he will have a big smile because of it. So there is a sense that George van Rensburg is one of those drivers who does like picking up the points, and he does do so a little bit more conventionally than others. He picks up a little bit here, a little bit there. He doesn't take massive chunks of championship points, but that's what gets him into a position like this, that he's consistently looking to improve. And if he can do this next year and have this sort of second half of season performance across a whole season, I have no doubt that he'll be right up there inside the top 10 and maybe even looking at potentially a top 5 in the championship if he's not careful. But he'll go and have a look straight down to the inside. George van Rensburg makes the move.
And through he goes. Nicely done there. And I think that concludes my point about George van Rensburg being the most improved driver, because at the start of the season, Lux absolutely had an advantage on him. And there's Jacob Reed now coming into the pit lane.
Yeah, that is Jason Green in, and he will be looking
yeah.
at what is a more conventional stop, 4.3 seconds, and that will be his second stop of the race with 30 laps to go. So that, I would say, would be good enough for him to go to the end. And I would say surely now Gronkowski and Paul O'Regan and Thomas Hinds will be looking at a pit stop pretty soon. Gronkowski still staying resolute with the 16.5s that he is able to do currently, and he's still got about 7 seconds out there. And he's getting busy though through Estoril. Off the road goes Lyle Pienaar, and Weissrecht finds himself then with the way through, and he will gain the place up there. And through all of that is Emil Bernstorff, mind you, trying to lap the pair of them, who just about gets away with it.
Yeah, I was worried about the line that Pienaar was taking. He looked as if he was going to go into the wall, and that could have been a real problem for Emil Bernstorff trying to lap these two. But he goes through. We're going to see it on board, and this is the scariest thing for a race leader, when you come up on back markers and they're fighting amongst themselves. Whoa! And very good heads-up driving from Emil Bernstorff, not to run straight into the back of Weissrecht. And admittedly, he was pretty lucky not to get cleaned out by Pienaar either, because if he'd spun across the track, that would have been a real issue.
Thomas Hinds into the pits then, and a 4.5 second pit stop for him, which leaves just the one car left, and that's car 6, Jordan Gronkowski, who departs straight on through the Lycée chicane and into the pits here around this BMW-owned circuit. And for Jordan Gronkowski now, he will make his way down to the second to last pit vault out there, and he will look to slow it right down, get himself on the binders, and then get himself off and away again on a set of the soft tyres at the moment. Keep an eye on Leopold Steneros, because he is fluctuating in and around some really nice times. He did a 14.8 2 laps ago, and Emil Lundell a 15.2 on that last lap, compared to what is a 15.3 by Steneros. So they're matching at the moment. Here comes Volta Lux. He's not going to take this one lying down, especially when he considers he's got Gronk behind him as well, who will want to attack, but not on the opening attempt. So now you've got Van Rensburg versus Lux versus Gronkowski, and this is all for 4th place.
Yeah, so we've got Steneros, Van Rensburg, Lux, and then Gronkowski. Steneros, of course, a few seconds up the road. Michel Rudeau also into the pits now. One thing I do find interesting in that pit window, as we see another little flicker from Emil Lundell, hopefully his internet connection is doing okay, but one thing I do find interesting is that there was only about 2 or 3 seconds the gap between Bernstorff and Steneros at the end of all of that. It really does make you wonder how much time Steneros lost by overshooting his box, and whether he had a chance of jumping ahead of Emil Bernstorff if that had not happened. And wide goes Van Rensburg, and he gets it back on the road, but this will give Lux a run. Definitely keep your eye, and a big twitch from Gronkowski as well, but keep your eye on this group, because this might get close up towards the hairpin.
It very much will do now through the long Estoril corner. This is where the downforce becomes important, and running that medium package there is George Van Rensburg with the flat bevel wing that he's going to have to deal with, and I think it's going to be a little bit tougher to find the pass if you're there. And Gronk throws it from a mile back into the corner and has to just bail out of it there, but he is getting a bit of an understanding of what happens. In comes Andre Lange for his second stop of the race then, as he dives into the pits.
So Andre Lange dropping outside of the top 10. That will put Radice into the top 10, although I think he will stop again, potentially. Another little flicker from Lundell. Come on, Emil. Hopefully his internet really can hold out to the end. We saw him flickering a bit on the grid as well, so I'm a little worried about this, because it seems to be a recurring issue which sorted itself out and then started playing up again. And here is that battle still. Van Rensburg, Lux and Gronkowski. Lux wasn't quite as close to Van Rensburg as I thought he would be after the mistake that Van Rensburg made at this corner a lap ago. And a mistake,
Gronk.
and that was Van Rens. It was Gronkowski making the same mistake that Reed made earlier on, and I think he's hit the barriers.
Yeah, and that will be him out of the race, no doubt. And it's a massive, massive shunt in as he goes through exactly the same result. Jordan Gronkowski cannot catch a break in the second half, in the final stages of this season. Just like that, it happens. He hasn't had a podium finish since Zandvoort, and it's his third retirement and fifth non-point score in what has been the last 8 races.
Yeah, it's exactly the same mistake as Reed, into the wall, side on impact. Doesn't look to be too much damage, but I think it would have done the suspension, and that is Jordan Gronkowski out of the race. What a shame there. And it's also worth pointing out that Reed and Gronkowski both had their accidents only a few laps after pitting for fresh, soft tyres. I wonder if this is a mistake with either pushing too hard once you have that grip, or struggling to get the grip into your tyres. Maybe they come out and the tyres are slightly cold, and that has caught out two of the top drivers at exactly the same point on the circuit.
This is costing Leopold Steneros' race now. He's stuck in traffic behind Michael Weischerek and Eric Bursma, who are battling for position. They do have the right to battle. They don't run, of course, here through. He might have to go 3 wide just to try and make his way through. He backs out of it then, which I think is going to be a case if he had to be aggressive if he wanted to win this race, and this is what's costing him here. Look at that gap now, 24 seconds it now finds itself to be, and he still can't clear Weischerek as he heads through the Nürburgring. This is agonising stuff, and now George van Rensburg and co will be thinking about this as well. Lyle Pinar on the back of this group.
And crucially, this is costing him more time than it cost Bernsdorf, even though Bernsdorf really struggled to get past this group, and it looked as if he was going to crash into them at one point. He managed to get through, and Steneros has been held up a little worse, as wide goes Weischerek, and up the inside goes Steneros, and he does go through into third position as Lux and Van Rensburg are side by side. In the background you can see them on the split screen. This is Lux going for the move. He's got the DRS open. I think Van Rensburg made a mistake in all of that because he's suddenly miles behind Steneros. Now what's happened to these two?
Well, he just caught himself a little bit wide going through. Remember, it's Lyle Pinar who's behind there in terms of the group there that's going on. But for George van Rensburg, he just attacked a little hard through Imola, trying to get that chicane sorted, and that has completely opened the gap. You can see here, just pushes a little bit deep through the first part of the corner, runs wide, and that allows Volta Lux into play. Bottom of your screen, here's going to be the move, and you're going to look over to the left-hand side. There's a lot of that battery harvesting going on by George van Rensburg, but he's still got enough straight line to hold him at bay, only for the moment now as they head to Nürburgring and lift off of it. Why don't you? Goes Volta Lux.
So that was why Van Rensburg is so far behind Steneros, and why he dropped back into the clutches of Lux. That little mistake in the chicane there. He was already dropping back a little, so I think he might be vulnerable to Lux in this, but managed to hold him off at the hairpin by braking later and having the ideal line. Through the chicane they go again. This is where the move was very nearly made a lap ago, and Van Rensburg still holds that 4th position, which, remember, would be his best result if he was to hold it.
Yeah, he'd certainly be looking at that here. 4th place for George van Rensburg and 12 championship points. He could definitely do with those over the course of this run. In fact, he's only had 1 4th place this season. That was at Aragon in very similar circumstances to what we have today. Because you've got to remember, at Aragon, the top 2 in the championship both not finish. What have we got today here, Caitlin? Top 2 in the championship will both not finish.
Indeed, Aragon was crazy. This race is even crazy. Well, not quite even crazy, but it's crazy as well. And there is the move now. Volta Lux does get it up the inside of George van Rensburg. Does go through into 4th position. What can the South African do about that?
Well, fight back, hopefully, is what he'll be thinking about at the moment against the Austrians. So that's going to be in the back of the mind through the 180, and then looking to try and get that drive off of the exit and up the hill over towards the Imola chicane and Chateau d'Eau. That big drop as you go through at Imola is such a committed section. It's very easy to have the car bottom out through that section and see what happened to Anthony Cat.
So there's the second DRS zone. Of course, Imola in real life has never had DRS zones. They didn't race there soon enough, or recent enough in Formula 1. And here's Jason Green under pressure from Michael Rudeau. That's for 13th position. Rudeau getting through on the inside. Nicely done, although a little lock up on the inside. Hopefully his tyres will last still. But yeah, I tell you what. Oh, and there's Lundell still having a little bit of a flicker. I'm still a little worried about this, but yeah, I tell you what, this is a good little race we're seeing, where we have not necessarily everyone battling in one big pack, but we have little pockets up and down the order, so we could always look at something.
Yeah, I'm just looking at his connection quality at the moment. Most drivers have 100 or 99, and he has definitely got the lowest that at some points goes to about 96 at certain points. So I guess he's dealing with a copper line, so to speak, on some Wi-Fi that's definitely not helping him in the way that he's going about his business, and might be something he looks at trying to improve later on as we look at Volta, Lux and co, who are all there at this point. And in comes Emil Bernstorff for his final pit stop of the race with 22 laps to go. He had that gap clawed back in to about 3 seconds to Leopold Stener, so he will have 3 seconds less to chase down on his 4.2 second pit stop and a pit lane transit time of 20 seconds. And that might be why the 2-stop is preferable here today, Caitlin, because it is a very, very short pit lane.
It is indeed, and I completely forgot that Bernstorff still had to make another stop when I was speaking about him versus Steneros earlier on. I still think they've got, and I think something's happened to Walter Lux. Well, I saw him disappear, and I think he must have reappeared. Sorry, I didn't mean to panic anyone, but anyway, we are still in the race. But yeah, in terms of Emil Bernstorff, he's really got to push now, use those soft tyres to his advantage. And remember that even though he has more grip now, he hasn't got all the grip in the world, because this is the stage in their stints where we saw Reed and Gronkowski make their individual mistakes.
Oh, you can see wide in the background there, George van Rensburg really struggling at this moment to try and get the car pointed where he needs to at Imola. That is the toughest corner for him currently in this race, and I think it is very telling at this point with 21 laps to go that is going to be where Struggle Street finds itself out there. In comes George van Rensburg. I can go no longer on my set of soft tyres. He will go for one more set of soft tyres to go to the end of this race. 4 retirees from this one, each to their own circumstances. Anthony Catt, Edward Apari, Ari, Jacob Reed and Jordan Gronkowski. It is all Club UK and I drivers who are out of this race so far, which goes to show that France seems to be very difficult to conquer.
Yes, indeed, very good. There's Kent Nielsen, who has just got past Van Rensburg thanks to Van Rensburg's latest pit stop. But Van Rensburg coming straight back through with the DRS, and Nielsen made it very easy for him indeed.
Oh no, he doesn't!
Spin! And around he goes. Van Rensburg there. It was too easy for him and lit up the rear tyres. Cold, soft tyres that he's just got from the pit lane. And unfortunately, that's going to cost him a good 5 to 10 seconds.
Too aggressive, putting the power down. He didn't have the full rotation of the car as he went through. Take a look at this then from Kent Nielsen's perspective. He'll see car throwing itself narrow down the inside, opens the steering, and then whoopsie daisy, round you go. It's very easily done there at Adelaide, because you want to stamp on the throttle and try and run away as quickly as possible. But for George van Rensburg, a mistake that he could not want to deal with at that moment in time. And look at what it's done now. He finds himself a full 7 seconds, 8 seconds back of where he wanted to be.
Very unfortunate. He's in 7th position now, should realistically be 6th, and that will cost him positions in the final order as well. Hello as well to Emily Van Camp, another South African, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken. Australian. My apologies, I am very much mistaken. But there you go. Emily Van Camp, welcome in, and sorry about that. Who says, I'll have to rewind to see what happened to Jacob and Gronk. Yes, well, I'm sure they probably won't want you to, but it was a very similar mistake for both of those drivers. Emily, of course, another driver who has raced with us in the past, and I'm very sorry that I forgot where you were from in the world, Emily.
Well, there's your race leader, Emil Lundell, 24 seconds clear of Leopold Steneros in second position. It is currently a Swedish 1-2 in the races. The top 10 currently is about Sebastian Reckhoff versus Andre Lange, and this is for one SimSpeed Championship point.
Indeed, 10th place is the lowest position you can finish in to score a point in the SimSpeed Championship. The iRacing Championship works slightly different, so it's very difficult for me to keep track of that, very difficult for us to keep track of that. Of course, we know that Reed won't score points, or won't score as many points in that today, having retired from the race, but I think we'll probably still win that quite comfortably. Here's Andre Lange in 10th position, and there is Michael Rudeau trying to chase down Thomas Hinz for P12.
Yeah, this would be a nice move. They've got Jason Green behind as well that they'll be trying to deal with. Over that last lap, both Green and Rudeau took half a second out of him. 16.1 versus 15.6 and on this lap, 16.2 for Thomas Hinz. And over the line for Rudeau was a 15.5, so 7/10 of a second on that lap. And it's looking pretty simple, really, for all the Frenchmen to try and find that move. Speaking of which, Sebastian Reckhoff can't do much about that. Andre Lange moves on through into 10th position, and both of those drivers do not have a SimSpeed Championship point at the moment, and they could be on the cusp of one.
Yet, of course, like I said, it goes down to 10th place, so Andre Lange is now up into the points, and we use the same system as Formula 1 for that, so 25 points for a win, down to 1 point for 10th place, and everything in between. But anyway, there is Thomas Hinz, P12, one of the Australian drivers. Emily Van Camp giving me the clap emoji, saying South Africa close enough. Well, I got the right hemisphere at least, and I do know Thomas Hinz. But anyway, Adam Webb saying, I keep missing F1 races, sad face. Yeah, well, I'm hoping we see both of you on the grid soon. We got one more race this championship, so my advice would be get yourself on the grid for the last one. Let's make it the biggest one of the year. And that, of course, will be in Hockenheim in just 1 week's time, which I think is a fantastic place to end the championship. Magny-Cours and Hockenheim, what a fun couple of races to round out a season with.
Yep, and the focus is, off the road goes Michel Rudeau as he tries to push through Estoril corner. That will take a little bit away from it, and just keeping an eye out here because we've had quite a bit of cloud cover come over the last couple of laps then or so, and it's looking like as it gets itself a little bit further on into the day, it's going to get a little bit more overcast as conditions go, so keep an eye on that. And maybe for next year in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, the iRacing weather system might be something that plays a hand, so to speak. It's something that definitely could be huge in terms of what updates in terms of the races, and that's why the iRacing builds have been so important, because this is the only iRacing official series really, Caitlin, that runs from over seasons, so to speak, and runs along with the Formula calendar, starting off in March and ending off all the way in December.
Exactly, it's why we've had such a long calendar as well. 24 races, we're on round 23 out of 24, and it feels like I've been commentating this for several seasons now, just because of the number of races that we have seen, but it is now beginning to wind down. But it really won't be that long until we're back again. There's not so much of an off-season as there used to be, more just a slight break. But anyway, here we are again in that battle for, now that's Andre Lange, and here's Rudeau up the inside of Hinz, so that's the battle for 12th we're looking at now, and through goes Rudeau at his home circuit.
Yeah, so he'll move up into that 12th place. He's got a bit of time though to catch Reckhoff and Lange, for example, so he's still got a bit more with 16 to go. And Thomas Hinz pulling out of the way then of everybody then as Leopold Steneros goes through. So Thomas Hinz here feeling like he is in a little bit of a struggle street at the moment, and I wonder whether he's close on incident points for him to do that so dramatically.
Maybe. Could it also, I mean, I didn't see if he went off. Could it have been a slowdown?
I don't think it would have been that, just because he'd lost that place already earlier. So I think Thomas Hinz, I would say, Caitlin, is more preserving the race.
Strange one, but anyway, Thomas Hinz hopefully still finishes this race. He's in 14th position as we speak, And 10 places higher is Emil Bernstorff, the former GP2 and GP3 driver. I hope he never gets tired of hearing us talking about him in that way, because that is where I personally know him from, way back in the 2015-2016 seasons. And he's now chasing down Walter Lux, a little bit wide on the exit of the chicane, but I guess he would say he's just using all of the track. And now into the Estoril corner, the long right-hander that this track is so famous for. It's a great turn because it slingshots you onto this straight now with the DRS wide open. He's getting closer and closer to Lux, and I tell you what, he's got a massive overspeed, and that's because... and he goes through, he's on the inside, and he goes through into third position.
He does. He's got himself 2 third-place finishes this season and a second. This would line himself up for his third-place finish, and his 4th podium. Hasn't won since VIR back in 2023. So it has been a long 18 months since Emil Bernstorff's found a victory here in this series, but he's not a regular participant. He joins in as and when he feels like it, and he has the confidence to go out there and drive. He is one of the brand new members into the 9,000 iRacing club, which of course is the top 1% of all sim racers in the world, and Emil Bernstorff definitely does look like a top 1%er.
Yep, you hear politicians talking about the 1%, and I think they're all here, I'm afraid. But anyway, here is Emil Bernstorff, who has just got into third position ahead of Walter Lux. Out of the way gets Lyle Pina, I think, or it could be, no, it is Lyle Pina. Anyway, Emil Bernstorff has a decent gap to Steneris up in front. I think Steneris should be safe in second position, and this shows you just how well Lundell and Steneris have done in this race, that they have such a gap at this stage with 14 laps still to go. Another slower driver just getting out of the way on the outside. They all go through cleanly and safely, and the battle continues.
Well, Emil Bernstorff making that pass, a 1:15.1. Leopold Steneros, much older tyres, 1:15.1. So the drop-off on the soft tyre here is just simply non-existent in these cold conditions, and it just means that you get someone like Emil Lundell, who doesn't need to go in and make a pit stop now to basically go to the 2-stop. It's very simple of a case here that so long as Emil Lundell's tyres decide that they want to hold together, he's got this under lock and key. Leopold Steneros can't touch him.
Yage1988 in the YouTube chat says, just to let you know, Andre and Sebastian, so Andre Lange and Sebastian Recco, are teammates. They're from the same squad, so really interesting to see who will get the point. Of course, there is no team's championship here, so they're just going for their own individual honours, but it's good to see that these two drivers, who clearly know each other well, are going at it as they are. And also apparently Michael Wieczorek is in the same squad, and there you see him actually being passed by Lyle Pina in the background for P16. But yeah, of course that's over the last point between Lange and Recco, which just adds an extra bit of spice to that individual battle.
It certainly does. There's your race leader, Emil Lundell, just 12 laps away now from success, and blinking away as always with that large gap of 22 seconds that he holds so dear to him at this moment over Leopold Steneros, who has driven a very conservative race there, just making the way through on Michel Rudeau. You look at the difference, it's 11 laps difference on the tyres, difference there as they've gone through a 15.2 from Steneros, a 15 flat from Emil Lundell. I think that pretty much says all you need to know, that the soft tyres just aren't graining and wearing away the same way that we've seen out of the medium tyres and drivers looking to get off of those. So I think it's a case of just sit down and look. It's very close. Rudeau went to the back of Leopold Steneros. I think this has been a tough showcase here in terms of what this circuit has been, and the cold conditions with the with iRacing setting the racing weather conditions to the race weekend that you would expect to go on to. I think really playing a huge difference, and I think you'll see that quite a bit, that the track is going to be very cold at the start and end of seasons.
Yeah, I think so too. But anyway, the tyres tend to like it at around these conditions. It's not freezing cold, it's not boiling hot. They won't be They won't be too cold, they won't be overheating. I think they're in an operating window at this point in time, and I think that's why we've seen some drivers running a little longer than we otherwise would expect to. But yeah, another thing that I was going to bring up is that before we started this broadcast, Jake, we were talking about how we haven't really seen that much divergence in tyre strategies over the course of this season. Sometimes you see one or two drivers trying to throw something interesting into the mix, but today it's actually been really quite unpredictable. I was not expecting Bernstorff to do a two-stopper, and then there were other drivers who pitted on the same lap as Bernstorff for their first stop, who have then extended it to a one-stop strategy. So try guessing this one.
Try guessing indeed, and there is George van Rensburg, and he is pulling back the gap, hand over fist here against Kent Nielsen, who does a 16 flat on his 59th lap of the race, and another 6/10, nearly 7/10 of a second, get absolutely locked off then in terms of the gap, and that goes down to 2 seconds. So 3 laps from now, George van Rensburg might definitely be looking at 6th place here, and you've got to consider in terms of this race as well that there are, get this, just 8 drivers on the leading lap.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a short lap, so that doesn't say as much as it otherwise would. But yeah, Lundell, for example, 22 seconds out in front, absolutely monstering the race, so it's no surprise whatsoever that other drivers have dropped back. Daenerys, meanwhile, sets the fastest lap of the race. Very good lap indeed. But yeah, as for the battle that we were just watching between Nielsen and Van Rensburg, with Van Rensburg reeling Nielsen in, I guess that's no real surprise because he's already passed him once in this race. It would throw a little bit extra spice into the mix if they ended up getting lapped themselves, because then of course they'd have to factor in not letting the leaders hold them up too much, and that's a big lockup from Kent Nielsen there. Van Rensburg will get closer still on this lap, and he's nearly within a second of him now.
Well, nearly is not enough, and keep an eye out on the dash to see whether he's going to have the green check mark at the DRS marker board as he goes through. I think he's just going to be a little bit behind. In fact, no, he's got it. He's got DRS. And remember, George van Rensburg has a rocket ship in a straight line, 310 kilometers an hour as he hits the brakes into Adelaide, and Ken Nielsen will realise now that he has just let him in the late stages of this race and could very easily go and sneak on through to go and get that 6th place finish and an extra 2 Sim Speed Championship points for George van Rensburg.
Van Rensburg really pushing it, but Nielsen possibly pushing it too much. We've seen him locking up a couple of times at the end of both of the DRS straights on the last lap. Let's see if he does it again, because they're just approaching another one. He doesn't, of course, have the DRS, but Van Rensburg behind him does, and that's why he's trying to brake so late to defend from George van Rensburg and make it so that he can't get close enough for a move. I think there was another little lock up there, and he's wide going into the chicane. Van Rensburg will be right on his tail now, heading on to another lap of the race.
Yep, and they will go on to their 62nd lap of the race here, charging on forward through Estoril, and now looking for that drive at half a second. Watch that number tumble down on the bottom of your screen, because it's going to be nothing in a moment. To the outside, George van Rensburg has overshot it, and he couldn't quite get it slowed down. Ken Nielsen holds on, and remember, there's been one spin for George van Rensburg. There's been one case about braking. He's done everything except make the pass clean.
Yeah, and both of that corner as well. So he's tried to make the move at the same place twice, and both times it hasn't quite gone his way. But he's got another opportunity. He's got potentially 8 more opportunities, and it looks like there's a black flag for Gray Riffioen. It's not quite like a black flag in Formula 1. It's not an instant disqualification, but that is a penalty for whatever reason.
Well, I would suggest that would be for incidents as he runs off wide. So Ray Griffioen then is going to have to come in. He will have 3 laps to serve that penalty, otherwise he will be disqualified from the session. And as you take a look, struggling there through the Lycée complex then goes George van Rensburg, and that gap does just skyrocket out again here to Kent Nielsen. Not much you can do. We'll take a look. This is probably where we see the culprit heading in towards that next corner, and he just overcooks it through, gets a bit of the gravel, and just like that, the penalty picked up. 17 is the number of incident points you get before drive-through penalties start to come into play, and that's what he's just found out.
Well, he was 15th position in this race anyway, but I think he's going to drop outside of the top 15. Definitely no chance of sim speed points, and that will affect him in the iRacing standings as well. Now we look back to this battle, Nielsen versus Van Rensburg. Nielsen kept it again on this lap. Van Rensburg still looking to be the faster of the two drivers, but that's only half the story. Through the chicane they go, and out towards the end of the lap. One more DRS straight to go on this lap. Still plenty more opportunities though, and Van Rensburg he'll be in a little bit of a rhythm at this point, but the trick is to break that rhythm at just the right point, that it doesn't throw you off, but it allows you to make that overtake.
Well, that's still close, and I'll tell you what else is also still close here, the battle for the final spot on the podium, because Walter Lux has refused to give up here against Emil Bernstorff. That gap radically at 1 second, and for brand new fresh tyres here for Emil Bernstorff by comparison here, you're looking at Walter Lux, and he has just got it working to the way that he needs to. It was 2/10 quicker on that last lap. It's roughly about a second, and he needs to try and claw that gap down ever so slightly if you want that podium, which Walter Lux, I'm pretty sure, definitely would love to get his hands on.
Yeah, I really wasn't expecting Lux to be able to keep up with Bernstorff as well as he has been doing. This is a one-stop strategy versus a two-stop strategy, with Lux being the one-stopper, and usually that would mean that Bernstorff would have the advantage and would accelerate away. I wonder if Bernstorff is being a little bit clever here, and he knows he can't pass Stint, so he just has to be fast enough to stay ahead of Lux. He doesn't need to push it too hard and risk anything more than that, but he'd still probably want a little bit more of a buffer than he's got, because Lux does have the DRS, and I do think that Lux is in a good place at this point in the race, both physically and probably mentally as well.
Yeah, another 2/10 on that last lap here, definitely clawing that gap back into a position where maybe he can launch an offensive out there. You can see there a very high downforce set being applied as the move done then for George van Rensburg. He gets it finally on Kent Nielsen and will move himself up into 6th place. So an important pass being made, but again, Bernstorff versus Lux looks like it's the race to be seen, and there is George van Rensburg now finally ahead of the Canadian Kent Nielsen.
Yeah, well, that finally is the word for that one. That was a battle that took them a good few business days. Now we're looking back up at Emil Bernstorff, who's still in 3rd position, still holding off Walter Lux, a little wide into Estoril. But then again, that does appear to just be his line through that corner. We've seen him do that a couple of times. I remember riding on board with Jacob Reed earlier in this race before Reed retired, and seeing Lundell doing exactly this, seeing Bernstorff doing exactly the same thing. And now he breaks into that hairpin once again and continues on his merry way. But yeah, still pretty interesting that Lux has managed to keep up with him as well as they have, despite them being so far behind Stint and so far ahead of Paula in a battle of their own.
Yeah, you can see they're 40 seconds off the race lead, 42 seconds right now, and Emil Bernstorff very much needing to look behind, because if it's another 0.2 of a second on this lap by Walter Lux, he will definitely be in a position to strike, with how close he was on that last lap to just throwing the car down through on the inside. Adelaide is that style of corner where you can do that if you're brave enough, and we'll take a look at the laps between them here. 15.3 Walter Lux, 15.3 Emil Bernstorff, slightly in the favour of Emil Bernstorff on that lap who's having to crank up the pace more and more and more with every single lap that goes by. And once more, we'll keep an eye on this as they now rush over through the golf corner and over towards Adelaide. Once more, it's a case of Lux getting right up to the back, but that's all he can manage. And they do have Thomas Hinds in front as lap traffic to try and make the pick happen.
So, Rudeau apparently has just made an overtake, and we're watching it now. Who's this? That okay. So we're about to see him make that overtake. He slipstreams down the straight, goes to the left-hand side. He's got the DRS wide open, and the overspeed carries him through.
Yeah, easy as you like. Your biggest mover in the field here with a handful of laps to go is Eduardo Radice. He is up 13 spots from 22nd to 9th position. He'll get 2 SimSpeed Championship points with that, but he's already got 3rd place confirmed as Emil Bernstorff again becomes the important factor here as he'll go on to his 68th lap of 70 here in 3rd position, a 15.4 compared to a 15.4. Valtteri Lux, I just don't think he can break through the dirty air.
No, Valtteri Lux seems to be hanging on to Bernstorff, but nothing more than that. Hasn't really looked particularly threatening the last few laps, although he's still there, and sometimes it just takes the presence of a driver to throw another driver off and make them force them into a little error. That was a little twitch there from Emil Bernstorff, but that was just a side effect of him putting the power down. And into the fast sweeping chicanes he goes towards the left-hander, the 180. And we're on to the penultimate lap now with the leaders as we see a replay of an overtake.
Yeah, this will be the move then by George van Rensburg, making it as difficult as possible, but he's clear before he hits the brakes and comfortably dispatches there of the pass, which puts him up into P6 currently at the moment. But Caitlin, this one continues to remain close, and I'm not sure what Valtteri Lux can do, but this might be the closest he's been in a little while here.
Well, I'm glad we've got this battle going on because up front, Lundell and Stenhouse have been a little bit boring, at least since the pit stops. And I'm glad that we do have a fight somewhere else in the field now. But Bernstorff and Lux have just 2 more laps in order to dispute this one, because we are very rapidly approaching the end of this race. I think Bernstorff just has the measure of him, unless Lux has something up his sleeve that we haven't seen yet.
Oh, he looked like he was as close as he was going to be. It was half a second at the line, but however it's happened, he hasn't got enough in a straight line to make that move, so he's got to get within 0.3 of a second, you feel, over the line if he wants that move sorted, as Michel Rudeau picks up the black flag penalty late, and that's going to add an extra 40 seconds onto his time as he goes through. The gap extends out for Emil Bernstorff versus Valtteri Lux, and I think that is the resignation of defeat from the Austrian right now, and he will realise that there is not much more that he can do. So we will take a look at your race leader, Emil Lundell, making his way out to the Adelaide hairpin, and now looking to charge his way further forward on in this race towards Nürburgring, and now the 180 corner. If he can hold on to this for another half a lap, he is going to be the 7th different race winner this season, and he will join the ranks of Jorge Martinez, of Jordan Gronkowski, Jacob Reed, Darren Parker. He will join, of course, Florian Kammerer and Eduardo Radice and be that driver. Comprehensively, he has been the fastest driver here today. Comprehensively, he has looked and made drivers like Jacob Reed, Jordan Gronkowski, the likes of Emil Bernstorff, there just sit and wait and say, not much more that we could do, and blink and you miss him. Emil Lundell takes the win at Magny-Cours, and he may just be a title contender next year.
Fantastic stuff from Emil Lundell. We barely saw him in this race. He was so competitive. We're looking back now at the race between Bernstorff and Lux to see if it changes before the end. There is Leopold Stenhouse coming home in 2nd position, and he gets an extra point for fastest lap. And it looks as if Bernstorff has done enough to hold off Lux for 3rd.
It certainly looks that way. Leopold Stenhouse, also career best 2nd place finish for him then, as he gets himself over the line for a Swedish 1-2, and then Emil Bernstorff over the line takes his 3rd podium of the season, and that might just move him up towards the top 10 of the championship, all things considered. A great race from many of these drivers. Connor Pooler, actually give him a lot of credit here, starts 5th, finishes in 5th as he comes through the Lysay complex for the final time. I think he here has been someone who's quietly gone about his business, and that's why he's inside the top 10 of the championship.
Great stuff. George van Rensburg is going to come home in 6th. Kent Nielsen will be 7th. Then Paul O'Regan, Eduardo Radice and Andre Lange will claim the last of the top 10.
Rudeau.
Okay.
Just seen something. Rudeau's missing his front wing heading towards the final laps of the race. So he came in with a broken front wing as well as the issues that he had. So that's worth keeping in mind. But let's get confirmation of result as we head ourselves through then the finishing order around the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours here in France. It would be an hour, 28 minutes and 34 seconds it would take for Emil Lundell to come across with the race win, and he'll win by a margin of 19 seconds over his compatriot Leopold Steneros, who will take that 2nd place overall. Emil Bernstorff will round out the podium for his 4th appearance on the podium, his third place finish of the season, as Walter Lux would end up in 4th position just behind him, and Connor Pooler would round out the top 5. George van Rensburg had himself a spin here today and would end up in 6th, finally getting his man in Kent Nielsen, who will take the consistent points that 7th place will give him. Paul O'Regan in 8th position ahead of Eduardo Radice, whose 2 Simspeed Championship points he will hold on to, and a first championship point for Andre Lange as he managed to finish off in 10th position ahead of his teammate Sebastian Rekov, who is there in 11th. It is then 1 lap down for the likes of Jason Green and Thomas Hinds in 13th position, with Lyle Pinar in 14th ahead of Ray Griffey-Owen. Then Michael Weischerek will be in 16th, and then the first of those 2 laps down will be Michel Rudeau and Eric Boersma, those drivers there. The drivers, though, who will not pick up points from today include Jordan Gronkowski and Jacob Reed, the 2 big names that found themselves in trouble out of the final corner then of the Lysay complex. Then you had Edward Apariari in trouble over towards Adelaide. Anthony Katz dramas happening early through Imola, and a non-start for the Spaniard Gerard Burrell there, who did not take on forward. We'll take a look here. This is going through Estoril, and he just finds himself over the outside. That's a very weird one there for Michel Rudeau. It's almost like he's running the car so low there, Caitlin, that the front wing just caught a bump there on the outskirts of Estoril, and that's just completely ripped the front nose off.
Yeah, it looks as if there was a traffic cone or something there for the DRS detection zone, but I don't know if that's what actually did the damage. It did look like the front wing just kind of gave up and departed its way, but whatever. Anyway, there you see the next race. We're going to be at the Hockenheimring in Baden-Württemberg in just 1 week's time. And that will be the very last time that you see the iRacing Grand Prix Tour this season. It's going to be a sad affair, but hopefully they give us a good race as a send-off, and I certainly will be looking forward to it.
I will as well, and the only place you can catch that is with us, of course, at Simspeed at this moment in time. If you haven't had the chance to already, if you're watching us on Facebook, on Twitch, or of course on YouTube, likes, shares, subscriptions, however you want to go and do it, please get yourself in, because there is so much amazing sim racing that goes through with us, and the Hockenheimring in 1 week's time is going to be an all-important season ender. But with thanks, of course, to Caitlin Penny, who's been alongside me, my name has been Jake Sperry. This has been a coming-of-age drive. It was never in doubt the way that he has driven this one, mastering the cold conditions, mastering the momentum, and I tell you what, Emil Lundell sends an important notice to those drivers who could not find a finish today. To car 6, Jordan Gronkowski. To car 2, Jacob Reed. It's not going to be as simple for you two next season, because I'm going to be here and I'm going to be taking points away from you all. We will see you, of course, in 1 week's time when we jump on over to the Hockenheimring.